Hello ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome back, Force here, and today I'd like to talk with you guys about the 5 most anticipated MMOs of 2014. Now that 2013 has come to a close, looking back on it, it was a pretty underwhelming year in terms of MMOs. In fact, the 2 games that I thought were decent were Defiance and Neverwinter, but even those games were just sort of, they were okay. Next year though, oh boy, there are quite a few titles that are coming out that I think are going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, before we get things started, I want to say this is a biased list. It's based on my personal opinion, my experience with these games, and what we know so far. And based on all of that, I'd like to give you and talk with you about the ones that I'm most excited for and the ones that I think you guys at home will enjoy the most as well. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get things started. At the top of the list, we have got The Elder Scrolls Online. Since this game was first announced, it's been very divisive, and understandably so. There's a lot of really passionate fans of the single-player Elder Scrolls series, and a balance that they're trying to strike with this game is between traditional MMOs and single-player fan base, and I think so far they've been doing a pretty decent job. Concessions have to be made on both ends of the spectrum, but in terms of, let's say, the MMO aspect, they're focusing on some big endgame PvP in the center continent of Cyrodiil. They've got adventure zones, they've got small dungeons and big group dungeons, so all of the staples that you expect in an MMO. Now, in terms of traditional single-player fans of the franchise, there's some things that you're able to do that you'll be familiar with. Obviously, exploring all of Tamriel will be an exciting time for those fans. Being able to pick up some of the objects in the environment. We don't have full physics. You can't pick up and knock over everything you see, but there's some interactivity. There are lore books that you'll be able to find throughout the world, and there's also some sort of an ability to build the character that you want. Again, not to the extent that we saw in games like Skyrim, Oblivion, and Morrowind, but you're able to select skills from these various skill lines to build. If you want to build a battle mage who wears heavy armor and uses a staff or uses a sword and a shield, or if you want to build a rogue who uses a two-handed weapon for some reason, these are things that you can do. So there is that flexibility, but again, it's not quite as much as we saw in those single-player games. I think though, so far, especially since that big gameplay reveal at QuakeCon, I think ZeniMax has been doing a good job of taking and listening to the feedback and implementing it into the game from the improvements that we've heard about in interviews and press releases and things of that nature. Moving on to the next game, we've got Wildstar. Wildstar is an upcoming sci-fi fantasy MMO set in space with kind of a funny attitude and a cartoony vibe to it. One of the big features of Wildstar, compared to something like The Elder Scrolls Online, while ESO does have endgame PvP, and there is going to be a story progression as a major focus of that game, Wildstar is really focusing on hardcore endgame raiding. There's going to be PvP there as well, but the big focus is that endgame, getting a 40-man group, going into these dungeons that are going to take hours at a time, defeating these monstrous bosses. That's really the big thing that they're trying to push, and it's kind of funny because it sort of is in contrast to the cartoony vibe of this game and the humorous nature with which they've been presenting the classes and the game itself. Now, we've got the traditional holy trinity, the trifecta of tank, healer, and DPS, and that's something that I personally do really enjoy. After playing Guild Wars 2 and my experience with The Elder Scrolls Online, having these hybrid classes, these jack-of-all-trades, I think there's a place for them and that I enjoy them in some sense, but I like picking the tank and being a beast that can absorb tons of damage, or I like picking the healer and being able to keep my entire team alive because this is what I specialize in and this is what I'm good at. And I think that on top of the combat system that Wildstar is implementing, where there's an active dodge system, being able to do all sorts of things like that and set up these area of effect abilities. I mean, I know these are things that exist in other titles as well, but what they've been presenting me, I think the combat system plus the focus on hardcore endgame raiding, those are the 2 big things that I'm really most looking forward to in Wildstar. Next up, we have got EverQuest Next Landmark, and I know people would like me to talk about just EverQuest Next, but chances are that won't be coming out in 2014. However, Landmark, sort of the precursor and a separate game that will in some ways play into EverQuest Next, that will be coming out. In fact, they're supposed to be starting up the testing for the alpha. I think it's later this month or sometime in early February. So this is it's the combination between an upcoming MMORPG, EverQuest Next, and Minecraft. That's basically it. We're gonna have this world, procedural generation, 5 different biomes, things like mountains and deep forest and snowy places and plains. There's gonna be 5 different biomes, and you're able to collect resources and build pretty much anything you can think of. All sorts of houses and towns and castles and bridges, and you can change the landscape, planting trees and removing rocks or doing all sorts of stuff. It looks really good. On top of all of that, beyond being Minecraft inside of a next-gen looking MMORPG, there is going to be a combat system in here. They haven't talked much about that yet in terms of what you will be fighting and how it will work, but there are going to be skills and abilities that your character will have on top of all of this building that you'll be doing in Landmark. So all of that stuff combined, the ability to be creative and build what you want, and then also have a combat system, I think that makes EverQuest Next Landmark really exciting. Now the next one on my list might not be considered a traditional MMO, but it's something that I would like to talk about, and that is Destiny. Now unfortunately, we have no word as to whether or not that's going to be coming to PC. They haven't officially announced it, but we do know it'll be coming to consoles in the later half of 2014, and frankly, I couldn't be more excited. Much different than the games we talked about so far, because they've been mostly fantasy-based, but this being a shooter, being from Bungie, the team behind Halo, and the game looking like, sort of like Halo Next. That's really how I feel about it. It's got a very big Halo vibe. You know, the world design, the characters, all those things very reminiscent of Halo. The combat itself, the way the shooting works, but there is the additional element of magic and special abilities and powers, and then also just more traditional MMO giant monstrosity enemies and bosses and things like that. It's something that I think is going to be very cool, and although it's not a traditional MMO, they're going to be combining these multiplayer elements. You're going to be going into an area, a dungeon if you will, and any other people in that area can join your squad and you can fight alongside them, things like that. It looks really exciting. I am bummed out that it's not going to be coming to PC, at least not initially, although it's probably going to happen at some point in the future. Right now they are just focusing on consoles, but I'll be picking up a console and I'll be playing this game because it's looking really good. And finally, for my most anticipated MMOs of 2014, we have got the World of Warcraft. What? I'm talking about the expansion for the Warlords of Draenor. Even though WoW is aged, even though every time I go back to it, it's only momentarily and I get bored fairly quickly within a matter of 1 to 4 weeks, I still think that the Warlords of Draenor will be adding enough new that I'm still going to want to come see it. And even if I only visit it for another 1 to 4 weeks, I just level up, play some of the endgame, and then realize none of my friends play anymore, so I'm bored. I still think it's going to be worth a look. They're talking about doing some pretty exciting things. I'm looking forward to the manor system where you're going to be able to have your own house and have people go out on missions for you, complete things like I think you can mine for resources and stuff. I don't know, it just looks like it's going to be more WoW and improved, and visually they're knocking things up a notch. They're talking about also allowing you to level up characters instantly if there's a class you haven't played, although there was this whole discussion about paying for that. I don't know how that's going to go. But anyways, yes, World of Warcraft, the Warlords of Draenor, it's more WoW, but it's still something that I'm going to be checking out. And that is going to do it for my top 5 most anticipated MMOs of 2014. Now again, EverQuest Next isn't going to be coming out next year. We're going to be seeing Landmark though. And then also Star Citizen, I want to mention that. It's not likely to fully release this year. That's probably not going to be until 2015. But I guess they will be coming out with modules where they will have aspects of the game, such as space-based combat, that we'll be able to try out. I'm really looking forward to Star Citizen, absolutely. But I didn't want to put it on the list because it's not likely to officially release until 2015. So that's my top 5, guys. Let me know what you think about those games. And if there's something on my list that you don't agree with, or if there's a game you think I should have included, just let me know in the comment section below. Again, these are my personal opinions, the games I'm most excited for, and the ones that I think you guys at home will enjoy the most. So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more coverage of these games and more right here on the channel. Be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much, guys. Keep watching and keep owning.